What if I told you that the most bizarre and controversial film ever made isn't just surreal art, but an actual initiation into Western occultism? That every single twisted image contains real magical knowledge that's been hidden from the public for centuries. I'm about to take you deeper into the shadows than most film analysts dare to go. While other channels give you surface-level trivia about movies, occult cinema reveals the genuine esoteric knowledge that filmmakers embed in their work. Just like the thief climbed that mysterious tower and discovered a world of hidden alchemical secrets, you're about to uncover why this film was banned in multiple countries, why John Lennon personally funded it, and why real occultists consider it one of the most important spiritual documents of the 20th century. The first secret alone is going to completely shatter everything you thought you knew about Christianity. Secret number 1, the Gnostic Christ Revelation. The scene where we see this Christ-like thief covered in flies, drunk in a ditch, most people think it's just blasphemous shock value, but it's not. Jodorowsky is showing you the Gnostic version of Jesus that the church has been trying to suppress for 2,000 years. See, in Gnostic tradition, Jesus wasn't the divine Son of God like Christianity teaches. He was a human being who achieved spiritual enlightenment through secret knowledge. Those flies covering the thief, they represent the corruption of organized religion. His drunken state shows how the true spiritual teachings have been intoxicated and perverted by institutional Christianity. But here's what's really incredible. Watch how the thief is literally crucified and then resurrected in that opening sequence. He gets made into plaster casts for mass-produced crucifixes, which represents how the church turned a real spiritual teacher into a commercial product. When he breaks free and whips those Roman soldiers, he's literally overthrowing the empire that corrupted his message. This isn't random imagery. It's showing you the exact Gnostic teaching that Jesus was a revolutionary mystic whose real message was about achieving personal divinity through hidden knowledge, not worshiping him as a savior. The Gnostics believed that every human being contains the same divine spark that Jesus awakened, and that the church created the worship system to prevent people from discovering their own godhood. Jodorowsky is using the thief character to demonstrate this forbidden teaching in the most visual way possible. But the thief's real spiritual education begins when he encounters someone who possesses the actual secret knowledge. Secret number 2, the Golden Dawn Temple. When the thief climbs that tower and enters the alchemist's chamber, most viewers just see random occult imagery. But if you know anything about the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, the most influential magical society in Western history, you'll recognize that every single symbol in that room is authentic ritual equipment. Look carefully at the scene. You'll see the twin pillars, Jachin and Boaz from Solomon's Temple, the exact same pillars used in Masonic and Golden Dawn ceremonies. There's the pentagram, a chalice, a wand, and a sword. These are the 4 elemental tools that have been used in ceremonial magic for over 400 years. But here's what most people miss. The room itself is arranged according to the Golden Dawn's temple layout. The alchemist sits in the position of the Hierophant, which is the highest initiate who guides others through spiritual transformation. Those various animals and symbols are positioned according to the cardinal directions and their corresponding elements. Jodorowsky studied under real occultists before making this film, and he's recreating an actual magical temple on screen. This isn't movie set decoration. It's a functioning ritual space designed according to principles that go back to ancient Egypt and medieval alchemy. The most incredible detail is that rainbow room where the thief first meets the alchemist. In Golden Dawn tradition, the rainbow represents the 7 planetary spheres that the soul must ascend through to achieve enlightenment. This entire sequence is showing you a real magical initiation, where the alchemist is testing whether the thief is prepared for the advanced spiritual work that's about to begin. And that work involves ascending through the actual celestial spheres that medieval mystics mapped out centuries ago. Secret number 3, the Hermetic Planetary System. When the alchemist introduces those 7 wealthy disciples, most people see them as random rich characters. But if you understand Hermetic cosmology, you'll realize that each one represents an actual planetary sphere from the ancient mystical system that influenced everything from astrology to Kabbalah. In medieval Hermetic tradition, the universe was organized into 7 planetary spheres: Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Each sphere was ruled by specific spiritual intelligences and controlled different aspects of human experience. To achieve enlightenment, the soul had to ascend through all 7 spheres, mastering the lessons of each one. Venus controls beauty, luxury, and sensual pleasure, which is why the Venus character in the movie runs a cosmetics empire and deals in artificial beauty. Mars governs war and conflict, So the Mars character is a weapons manufacturer who profits from violence. Jupiter rules expansion and philosophy, hence the Jupiter character's involvement in art and culture. But here's what's really incredible. Each character's backstory perfectly matches the traditional attributes of their planetary sphere. This isn't coincidence. Jodorowsky is demonstrating how these ancient spiritual forces manifest in modern society through the people who've mastered their particular sphere. These wealthy disciples aren't just rich people, they're humans who've achieved mastery over specific planetary energies and now control those forces in the material world. They've become the earthly representatives of cosmic principles that mystics have been studying for thousands of years. But Jodorowsky takes this ancient system and reveals something that will blow your mind about how these forces actually operate in our world today. Secret number 4, predictive social programming. This is where the Holy Mountain becomes genuinely prophetic. Each planetary character's business operation perfectly predicts how social control actually works in our modern world. And remember, this movie was made in 1973, decades before most of these systems existed. The Mars character, the weapons manufacturer, doesn't just sell guns. She creates toys that program children to hate specific enemies, preparing them for wars that won't happen for 15 to 20 years. She literally says they decide who the enemy will be decades in advance and start the psychological programming early through entertainment. Sound familiar? This is exactly how the modern military-industrial complex operates, using movies, video games, and media to prepare public opinion for conflicts that are planned years in advance. The Venus character runs a beauty empire that creates artificial body parts and cosmetic surgery. In 1973, this seemed like bizarre surrealism. Today, we live in a world of Instagram filters, plastic surgery addiction, and artificial beauty standards that are literally destroying people's self-image. But the most incredible prediction is the Jupiter character's art factory, where workers mass-produce meaningless abstract art on an assembly line. This perfectly describes how the modern art world actually operates, as a money laundering scheme for the wealthy, where the actual artistic value is completely irrelevant. Jodorowsky understood that the planetary forces don't just influence individuals, they control entire industries and social systems. Each sphere of influence has been weaponized to manipulate human consciousness on a massive scale. But the most shocking revelation comes when we see how spiritual transformation actually works at the most basic biological level. Secret number 5, real alchemical transmutation. That infamous scene where the alchemist transforms the thief's excrement into gold isn't just gross-out surrealism. It's demonstrating the actual process of alchemical transmutation that medieval mystics spent their entire lives trying to master. In authentic alchemy, the transformation of base metals into gold was never about literal chemistry. It was a metaphor for spiritual transformation. The prima materia, or first matter that alchemists worked with, represented the raw, unrefined human consciousness in its most degraded state. The excrement in the movie represents this prima materia, the waste products of ordinary human existence, the psychological and spiritual garbage that most people carry around without ever examining. The alchemist's ability to transform this waste into gold demonstrates mastery over the fundamental alchemical process. The gold that's produced isn't just metal. It represents the philosophical gold of enlightened consciousness. The thief has undergone his first real spiritual transformation, moving from what alchemists call the negredo, or black phase of dissolution, into the beginning stages of purification. This scene is showing you the exact process that alchemists like Paracelsus, John Dee, and Nicholas Flamel were actually performing. Not literal chemistry, but consciousness transformation using the body's own biological processes as the raw material. But before the deeper work can begin, the initiate must undergo the preliminary purification rituals that mystery schools have used for thousands of years. Secret number 6. Ancient mystery school initiation. Those bizarre opening scenes with the two women being ritually washed, shaved, and prepared aren't random surreal imagery. They're recreating the exact initiatory practices used by mystery schools from ancient Egypt to medieval Europe. In authentic mystery school tradition, initiation always begins with ritual purification. The candidate must be cleansed of their ordinary identity before they can receive the deeper teachings. This includes physical cleansing, the removal of hair, which represents attachment to the material world, and the donning of ritual garments that symbolize the new spiritual identity they're about to assume. The shaving of heads isn't just symbolic. In many traditions, hair was believed to store psychic energy and memories. Removing it creates a clean slate for the new consciousness that's about to be implanted through the initiation process. Jodorowsky is showing you that spiritual transformation isn't just about learning new ideas. It requires a complete reconstruction of identity that begins with the systematic dismantling of who you think you are. and this dismantling process follows a very specific map that's been hidden in plain sight for centuries. Secret number 7. The Kabbalistic Tree of Life. The journey to the Holy Mountain isn't just a random quest, it's following the exact path of ascension described in the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, one of the most sophisticated maps of consciousness ever created. In Kabbalah, the Tree of Life consists of 10 spheres called Sephiroth, connected by 22 paths. The soul's journey from ordinary consciousness to divine awareness follows a specific route up this tree, with each sphere representing a different level of spiritual understanding. The movie's structure perfectly matches this ascension pattern. The thief begins in Malkuth, the lowest sphere representing material existence. His encounter with the alchemist moves him to Yesod, the sphere of illusion and dreams. The gathering of the 7 planetary disciples represents the ascension through the middle spheres, each corresponding to different aspects of consciousness. But here's what's really incredible. The obstacles they face on the mountain correspond exactly to what Kabbalists call the Qliphoth, or shadow aspects of each sphere. In Kabbalistic teaching, every level of spiritual advancement has its corresponding temptation or test that must be overcome. The hallucinations and challenges the disciples face aren't random psychedelic imagery. They're the specific trials that Kabbalistic texts describe for each level of the tree. The sexual temptations, the visions of power, the confrontations with their deepest fears, all of this matches the traditional descriptions of what happens when consciousness attempts to ascend to higher levels. The most incredible detail is that there are exactly 9 disciples plus the alchemist, making 10 total, the same number as the Sephiroth on the Tree of Life. Each character represents a different aspect of consciousness that must be integrated for the ascension to succeed. But when they reach the summit, they discover something that connects to one of the most dangerous conspiracy theories in modern occultism. Secret number 8, the Council of Nine. When the disciples reach the Holy Mountain and discover 9 immortal beings who supposedly control the world, most viewers see it as fantasy. But if you know anything about modern occult conspiracy theories, you'll recognize that Jodorowsky is referencing something that many people believe is absolutely real. The Council of Nine appears throughout esoteric literature as a group of advanced beings who allegedly guide human evolution from behind the scenes. This concept appears in the channeled materials of people like Phyllis Schlemmer, the writings of Andrija Puharich, and even influenced Gene Roddenberry's creation of Star Trek. But here's where it gets really interesting. Many of the people involved in these Council of Nine communications were also connected to CIA mind control experiments and remote viewing programs. The line between spiritual channeling and psychological operations becomes very blurry when you start researching this stuff. In the movie, the 9 immortals turn out to be mannequins, fake representations with no real power. This could be Jodorowsky's way of saying that the supposed secret rulers of the world are actually illusions, projections of our own need to believe that someone is in control of the chaos. Or it could be even more subversive. Maybe he's suggesting that the real controllers are so hidden that even their representatives are just decoys, designed to distract seekers from the true source of power. The fact that the disciples have to storm the mountain to confront these beings mirrors the revolutionary aspect of genuine spiritual awakening, the realization that all external authorities, even spiritual ones, must eventually be transcended. But before this final confrontation can happen, the disciples must undergo the most crucial phase of mystical transformation. Secret number 9, the ego death ritual. That scene where the disciples burn their money and wax effigies of themselves isn't just symbolic renunciation. It's recreating authentic ego death rituals that have been practiced by mystics for thousands of years. In virtually every serious spiritual tradition, there comes a point where the seeker must symbolically die to their old identity before they can be reborn into a higher state of consciousness. This ego death isn't metaphorical. It's a real psychological process that can be triggered through specific ritual practices. The burning of wealth represents the destruction of material attachments that keep consciousness trapped in lower levels of awareness. But the burning of the wax effigies is even more profound. It's the ritual destruction of the self-image, the mental construct of who I am, that prevents genuine spiritual transformation. Watch how reluctant some of the disciples are to burn their effigies. This perfectly captures the psychological resistance that occurs during real ego death experiences. The ego will fight desperately to preserve itself, even when the person consciously wants to transcend their limitations. In shamanic traditions, this process is often triggered by psychedelic substances or extreme physical ordeals. In Tibetan Buddhism, it's cultivated through meditation practices that systematically dissolve the sense of separate self. In Western alchemy, it's the mortificatio phase, where the old personality must be killed before the new one can emerge. Jodorowsky is showing you that genuine spiritual transformation isn't just about gaining new knowledge or having mystical experiences. It requires the actual death of everything you think you are. And this death must be chosen consciously and willingly, not forced from the outside. But the most incredible revelation comes when we realize what this entire movie is actually doing to us as viewers. Secret number 10, cinema as modern mystery school. The ending of The Holy Mountain is one of the most shocking moments in cinema history, and it reveals the deepest secret of all. When Jodorowsky breaks the fourth wall and shows the film crew, he's not just being avant-garde, he's revealing that cinema itself has become the modern equivalent of ancient mystery school initiation. Think about what just happened to you as a viewer. For 2 hours, you've been exposed to authentic occult symbols, alchemical processes, Kabbalistic teachings, and mystical practices. You've witnessed ego death, spiritual transformation, and the ascension through planetary spheres. You've been initiated into knowledge that was once reserved for the inner circles of secret societies. When Jodorowsky says, "Real life awaits us," he's performing the final stage of mystery school initiation, the return to ordinary reality with transformed consciousness. The disciples don't need to find immortality on the mountain because they've already achieved it by becoming part of the eternal images of cinema. This is the ultimate secret that mystery schools have always known. Immortality isn't about preserving the physical body, it's about transcending the limitations of individual identity. By participating in the film, both as actors and as viewers, we become part of something larger than our separate selves. But here's what's really mind-blowing. Jodorowsky is suggesting that movies have replaced temples as the primary means of spiritual transmission in the modern world. The darkened theater becomes the sacred space, the screen becomes the altar, and the shared experience of watching becomes the ritual that transforms consciousness. Every time someone watches The Holy Mountain and understands its deeper meanings, they're participating in an ongoing initiation that connects them to thousands of years of mystical tradition. The film becomes a living transmission of esoteric knowledge that continues to initiate new seekers decades after it was made. Now I know what you're thinking. This is just a weird art film, not some mystical initiation. But here's the thing. The most powerful spiritual teachings have always been hidden in plain sight. The mystery schools never advertised their presence. They encoded their knowledge in art, literature, and symbols that would only be recognized by those ready to receive them. What makes The Holy Mountain so dangerous is that it's not just referencing these ancient teachings, it's actually performing them. Every symbol, every ritual, every stage of the journey corresponds to authentic mystical practices that were once taught only to carefully selected initiates. Jodorowsky spent years studying with real occultists, Zen masters, and shamans before making this film. He wasn't just creating entertainment. He was translating genuine spiritual technology into a medium that could reach millions of people. And here's what's really incredible. The movie works whether you understand the occult symbolism or not. On the surface level, it's a surreal journey that expands consciousness through pure visual impact. But for those who recognize the deeper teachings, it becomes a complete course in Western esotericism. This is why the film was banned in so many countries. Authorities understood instinctively that it was more than just a movie. It was a tool for consciousness transformation that could potentially awaken people to realities that the power structure prefers to keep hidden. The fact that John Lennon personally funded the film after seeing El Topo shows that even celebrities recognized the spiritual power of Jodorowsky's work. Lennon was deep into his own mystical studies at the time, and he understood that these films were genuine spiritual documents disguised as entertainment. But when you understand that every image, every symbol, every sequence in The Holy Mountain is based on authentic mystical practices, you realize that you're not just watching a movie, you're participating in a ritual that connects you to thousands of years of hidden knowledge. And the most incredible part is that this knowledge is available to anyone willing to look deeper. You don't need to join a secret society or find a hidden master. The teachings are right there on screen, waiting for you to recognize them. The question is, are you ready to see what's really being offered? The Holy Mountain isn't the only film that functions this way. Directors like Kenneth Anger, Maya Deren, and even Stanley Kubrick have embedded authentic occult knowledge in their work. There's an entire tradition of filmmakers who understand that cinema can be a vehicle for genuine spiritual transmission. But Jodorowsky might be the most explicit about it. He's not hiding the mystical content behind metaphors or subtle symbolism. He's putting it right in your face and daring you to recognize what you're seeing. This is why his films have such a devoted following among people interested in consciousness exploration, psychedelic experiences, and alternative spirituality. They're not just movies, they're initiatory experiences that can genuinely transform how you see reality. And once you understand how to recognize these teachings in cinema, you'll start seeing them everywhere. The mystery schools never disappeared, they just learned to hide their knowledge in the stories we tell ourselves for entertainment. But I want to know what you think. Did you catch any of these occult symbols when you first watched the movie? Are there other details I missed that might have deeper spiritual significance? Drop a comment below and let me know which of these secrets shocked you the most. And if you've had any personal experiences with the practices I mentioned, meditation, ritual work, consciousness exploration, I'd love to hear how this analysis connects to your own spiritual journey. But before you go, let me leave you with one final thought that will change everything. If Jodorowsky is right that cinema has become the modern mystery school, then every time you watch a movie with deeper awareness, you're participating in your own spiritual initiation. The question isn't whether these teachings are real. The question is whether you're ready to recognize them when they're offered to you. The mystery schools are still operating, they're just using different methods than they did 1,000 years ago. And the most incredible part? You don't need anyone's permission to begin your own initiation. The knowledge is right there, waiting for you to discover it. The real holy mountain isn't a place you travel to, it's a state of consciousness you ascend to. And every genuine work of art, every authentic spiritual teaching, every moment of expanded awareness is another step up that mountain. The only question is, how high are you willing to climb?